My dad is a poet and performer, and often performs in bars doing spoken word. He sometimes does something at these shows he calls the Book of Strange, which involves picking someone out of the crowd and enticing them to tell their craziest story. What is the strangest thing that ever happened to you? Seems like it would be awkward, but my dad really does have a knack for putting people at ease and drawing out the genuine wacky stories that 99% of people have in their repertoire. This subreddit is basically the same thing. People telling unexplainable incidents. I even reported one of my own here. So I figured I'd write out one of the stories that a man, a bland old government worker, like most people in the capital city we live in, told us one night at a local bar. The guy was in rural Central Africa doing development work for a period of months. He had been in a small, more remote village and was driving back to his house on a barely there dirt road through the middle of the savannah. It was nighttime and the moon and stars were sparkling bright. As he drove, he saw something in the middle of the road. As he came up to it, he realized that it was a donkey, a big, dusty donkey, completely unbothered by the car and refusing to move. The guy honked a couple of times, then got out of the car to try to move it. Just as he was getting out of his car, he was hit by a massive wave of dusty particles. A sandstorm had come out of absolutely nowhere, and he quickly jumped back into his car for safety. He sat in his car for a few seconds as this extremely intense sandstorm passed the car, completely obscuring all the windows with thick clouds of brown dirt, so he couldn't see anything. The sandstorm passed as quickly as it came. The whole thing lasted not more than 10 to 15 seconds, and then it was right back to a clear moonlit night. But with a big difference. The donkey was gone, and as the guy stepped out of his car, he realized that the road he was on was also gone, and there was a gigantic cliff right in front of him, about as far as the donkey was from the car. If he had gone even a little further with his car, he would have hurtled off this precipice and fallen to his certain death. So, was this donkey some kind of a guardian? Or just what exactly was it? Was it a coincidence? Was this fake? The original landscape he saw was not that of a cliff. Or was it? He turned around and drove away. It's a pretty crazy story, huh? Even when I heard it, I thought it was pretty unbelievable. But think what you want and decide for yourself. Earlier, I fell down a glitch in the matrix rabbit hole and remembered an experience that I had in high school that I've not thought about in years. So obviously I had to take to the internet to see what you guys had to say about it. My high school ex-boyfriend and I had been in a neighborhood town most of the afternoon visiting his dad and stepmom. We were in his Jeep on our way back to my house because it was getting late and I needed to make curfew. The parkway was pretty deserted because it was the middle of the week and his windows were up because it was becoming cold outside. Out of nowhere, and at the same time, we heard sounds one might associate with a major wreck, like glass shattering and the whole shebang, if you know what I mean. I felt something hitting me, like gravel and shards of glass, and my head instantly throbbed. We were both so alarmed that he pulled over to the side of the road, and we went through everything that we thought that we experienced. And he asked me, "Did you hear that?" And I replied, "Yes." "Do you feel things hitting you?" And we were both in agreement that we had heard and felt the same thing. We looked around, and there definitely wasn't a car accident, and there was nothing in the vehicle, as far as any debris or glass, but there was also nothing to account for my instant and intense headache. Like I said, I hadn't thought about it in years, but I'm curious to see what theories the internet comes up with, because I've never shared it with anybody, and it's always been something that I thought was really strange and kind of scary and bizarre, and that got me thinking, what if we really were in some kind of an accident that night that killed us both? And now I'm just living out what should have been my life. Or what if there was an accident, but some sort of butterfly effect or glitch reversed it? I don't know if that's what happened or if it's just my imagination, but for me at least, it's something to think about. This happened to me many years ago when I was around 23 and was trespassing on some private land to reach a mountaintop. Legend has it that it was an old volcano. And when I lived in this area as a child and as a kid, we would see it as this great adventure to climb the quote-unquote hill. During those times, we never saw anybody climbing the hill, as we called it. Years later, I went back and thought I would just get up there and climb it again just for fun. So up I went, looking for a familiar landmark, and in my walk, I met another climber that I had also met only by association there on the hill. So it was a brief hello and how are you? And then we just continued on our ways. The strange part came many years later when I actually became friends with the guy in question that I saw that day on the hill. And he actually mentioned to me that he'd never climbed the hill. And he was very adamant about it. This guy is not average looking, and he had distinct features. And on that day, he recognized me. He doesn't do any kinds of mind-altering substances or drink or anything like that. It's something that's always freaked me out because I know that's where I met him, and I recall seeing him that day. I'm currently a student in college and occasionally come home for holidays and breaks. Every time I come home, my brother and I play basketball on my first night back. It's just something that we do. It was a clear, warm night, and we were just chatting in his car before shooting some hoops. He made a joke about how the people running the simulation world would turn on the wind just to mess with us. I looked at him thinking, okay, smart guy, and sure enough, we stepped outside, take a few jump shots, and it gets super windy out of nowhere. He looked at me with a smirk, and then it starts raining out of nowhere. I know weather can be unpredictable at times, but it seemed odd given the circumstances. Later that night, we got some food and started eating in the fast food parking lot of the freeway. Cars were passing all night, and it wasn't very late. My brother said, I think it'd be cool to touch the north and south freeway dividers. And when he said that, I looked at him like he was crazy and said, no way, it's packed with cars. Moments later, there wasn't a car in sight. He starts walking, not running, but walking across. And at that moment, I start to follow him because I'm thinking that he's going to get hit by a car. But believe it or not, we had enough time to walk across the entire freeway, touch the divider, and walk back without a vehicle in sight. As soon as we got back into his car, the freeway became busy, very busy once again. This seemed far stranger than what happened earlier. I know walking across the freeway is a stupid move. Both of these instances could have easily been really crazy coincidences, or my brother is part of the potential simulation. Who knows? This happened a few months ago when the entire country was still under lockdown. That day, my husband and I were working from home. We were sitting opposite from each other at a large table. His computer was facing him, and my laptop was facing me. That means I couldn't see what was on his screen, and he couldn't see what was on mine. My husband and I are both deaf. We can hear things and identify most sounds. I can hear someone talking, but I can't understand them if they're either wearing a mask or looking away. I have to hear somebody and read their lips to understand what they're saying. We can enjoy music, but we don't have enough hearing to understand the lyrics. We can hear a dog barking, for example, but we don't have enough hearing to figure out where the dog is. I hope these examples help you understand how much we can and cannot hear for the story. My husband likes to listen to his music while working, so we're sitting at the table tapping away at our computers with my husband's music filling the air. All of a sudden, I was hit with a vivid memory of this candy shop in the small town we used to live in. I hadn't thought about that candy shop in years, and it was a cute old little building, and it had a large section of candy and ice cream. Do you know what I miss? I said to my husband. That candy shop in our old town. My husband gave me a strange and slightly terrified look. He then spun his computer around and showed me the song that he was playing, and it was that song by 50 Cent called Candy Shop. I don't know if I'd call this a glitch, but it was definitely strange. It's possible that I heard Candy Shop in the lyrics and my brain subconsciously picked it up without my conscious mind actually registering it. This has never happened to me before, but I would like a scientific explanation for why this is so strange and why this happens to people from time to time. Most glitchy thing up till now happened to me and my girlfriend yesterday, and we're still baffled. A month ago, me and my girlfriend spent our holidays in France. We rented a nice little cottage and settled in for a week. We brought a book that was special to us, and I can clearly remember taking it out of my backpack when we arrived there. My girlfriend took the book and placed it into the drawer next to the bed, which she also clearly remembers doing. Eventually, we were so busy with the outdoors that we didn't have time to read the book, so it stayed in the drawer during the whole holiday. Time came to leave the cottage, and we were already short on minutes as we had to get to the next place in time. So we rushed a bit during packing. You can guess what happens next. At the next place, we discovered that, of course, we forgot the book. We immediately sent a message to the hostess asking if she could look for the book for us. Alas, new guests had already arrived, so she could not check the room until the next weekend. Next weekend comes, and sure enough, no book. We're bummed out because it was dear to us and kind of an antique of sorts. Now, this is a part that we both get freaked out by. We get back home from the holidays, and I take a quick look inside the drawer in which the book was always kept. And lo and behold, there it is. The book is actually in the drawer. But how is that even possible? Did timelines overlap? Did we never take the book on our own timeline, but experienced a different timeline in France? Still gives me the shivers, as we're both 100% sure that we held that book in our hand in that cottage and it somehow re-emerges or reappears back here in our home. After taking a potentially dangerous amount of medication as a child, I found myself on a gurney in the back of an ambulance. After my initial protestation and thorough freakout at being tied down to some bed with two strangers looking over me. I was told that I almost didn't make it. I ended up leaving the hospital the next day. My two brothers and two good friends picked me up. On the way back to my place, we stopped at Walmart. Within 2 minutes of entering the store, an elderly woman walked to our group, and she paid no attention to the others that I was with. She looked directly at me and said, "God told me that you needed this," and she handed me a pamphlet. "Back from the Dead. Jesus is here to save you," is what it was titled. The pamphlet consisted of illustrations of a man waking up on a hospital gurney, dazed and confused, just like I was, not even 12 hours earlier. The reason for this predicament coincided with mine as well. The booklet explained how to accept Jesus into your heart and how to be saved. I'm now 32 years old, and this, along with a few other experiences, has made me absolutely certain that our reality has some sort of synchronous nature to it. Is it a glitch in the matrix? God? A guardian angel? One heck of a coincidence? Who knows? My grandma and I were out to lunch a few years back. Booth seats. And we were talking about some life stuff dealing with our family, and she was all worried about the family not getting along. I'm looking down at the table and see out of the corner of my eye a guy walk up behind her and touch her on the shoulder. At that very moment, someone dropped something in the kitchen that was nearby, and we heard this loud snap sound. My grandma and I looked directly at the man who touched her on the shoulder, and he isn't there anymore. My grandma was freaked out, saying, "What's happening right now?" Nearly shaking right after this happened. To calm her down, I responded, "Maybe it was an angel trying to get your attention. I honestly don't know what that was. It was really weird." And then right after I told her that, I thought maybe it wasn't an angel. Maybe it was something far worse.